A-level biology, photosynthesis, AQA, common exam questions taken from AQA past papers. In the following passage, the numbered spaces can be filled with biological terms. During photosynthesis, plants produce organic compounds which contain carbon, such as carbohydrates, lipids and proteins. Most of the sugars synthesized by plants are used by the plants in respiration. The rest are used to make other groups of biological molecules. These biological molecules form the biomass of plants. Biomass can be measured in terms of mass of carbon per given area per given time. The chemical energy stored in dry biomass can be estimated using a calorimeter or using calorimetry. Describe the light-independent reaction of photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide combines with ribulose biphosphate. This produces 2-glycerate 3-phosphate using the enzyme Rubisco. Glycerate 3-phosphate is reduced to triose phosphate using reduced NADP or NADPH, using energy from ATP. Triose phosphate is converted to glucose or hexose or a named organic substance. The light absorbed by chlorophyll is used in the light-dependent reaction. Name the two products of the light-dependent reaction that are required for the light-independent reaction. So ATP is produced in the light-dependent reaction and reduced NADP, and they are needed for the light-independent reaction. In photosynthesis, which chemicals are needed for the light-dependent reaction? You need NADP, ADP, PI and water. Describe what happens during photoionization in the light-dependent reaction. Chlorophyll absorbs light, or light excites the electrons in chlorophyll. The electrons are lost or become positively charged, or electrons go to the electron transport chain. That's probably the one I would say, actually. The excited electrons go to the electron transport chain. A student obtained a solution of pigments from the leaves of a plant. Then the student used paper chromatography to separate the pigments. The diagram shows the chromatogram produced. Explain why the student marked the origin using a pencil rather than using ink. The ink and the pigments would mix. With pencil, the origin line is in the same position, or with pencil, the origin line is still visible. It's mainly this one, the ink and the pigments would mix if you did it in ink. Describe the method the student used to separate the pigments after the solution of pigments had been applied to the origin. You should put the level of solvent line below the origin line and then remove or stop before the solvent reaches the top of the paper. Give two products of the light-dependent stage of photosynthesis. Could have reduced NADP or NADPH or ATP or oxygen. The products of the light-dependent stage are used in the light-independent stage of photosynthesis. What are these products used for? They're used to make sugars or glucose or fructose or to fix carbon dioxide. The diagram shows the structure of a chloroplast. Label the diagram with an X to show where the light-dependent reaction takes place and with a Y to show where the light-independent reaction takes place. Well, the light-dependent reaction is going to have chlorophyll in it, and that is the thylakoid membranes that have chlorophyll. And then Y would be the stroma, where the light independent reaction takes place. The photolysis of water is an important part of the process of photosynthesis. Describe what happens in the photolysis of water. Water forms hydrogen ions or H+ ions and electrons or E-. Oxygen is formed. Light excites electrons or raises their energy level of the electrons to the photosystem or to the chlorophyll. ATP and reduced NADP are two products of the light-dependent reactions. Describe one function of each of these substances in the light-dependent reactions. So ATP provides energy to convert glycerate 3-phosphate into triose phosphate. You can't put the abbreviation anymore of TP, you have to put triose phosphate. And then reduced NADP provides the hydrogen or the electrons to convert glycerate 3-phosphate into triose phosphate. Describe how NADP is reduced in the light-dependent reaction of photosynthesis. Electrons from chlorophyll or photolysis. Diagram shows the light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis. In which part of a chloroplast do the light-dependent reactions occur? In the thylakoid or grana. Name the substances in boxes A, B and C. So A is here, B is here, and C is here. So A is oxygen, B is ADP and PI to convert to ATP, and C, NADP, reduced NADP or NADPH. Use information in the diagram to explain the role of chlorophyll in photolysis. So this bit here we're looking at. So chlorophyll absorbs light energy and it loses electrons to go to the electron transport chain as they get excited to a higher energy level. Or you could say electrons from the water pulls the equilibrium to the right. I probably wouldn't put that one. How the energy of light is converted into chemical energy in the light-dependent reaction. So how light is converted into chemical energy. So electrons are raised to a higher energy level, or electrons are excited, and there is use of electron carriers. The diagram represents some of the light-independent reactions of photosynthesis. Describe the light-independent reaction of photosynthesis and explain how they allow the continued synthesis of hexose sugars. So, 5-carbon ribulose biphosphate combines with carbon dioxide to form a 6-carbon compound, which quickly dissociates into 2 3-carbon compounds, into 2 glycerate 3-phosphate, which is then turned into 2 molecules of 3-carbon triose phosphate. That uses ATP and reduced NADP. So eventually you get 2 molecules of 3-carbon compound triose phosphate, which can then form a hexose sugar. 5 out of the 6 ribulose biphosphate is regenerated. 10 molecules of 3-carbon triose phosphate form 6 molecules of the 5-carbon. So, next one, describe the role of electron transport chains in the light. describe the role of electron transport chains in the light-dependent reaction. So electron transport chain accepts excited electrons from the chlorophyll. The electrons lose energy as they move along the electron transport chain. ATP is produced from ADP and Pi. Also, reduced NADP is formed when electrons from the electron transport chain and H+ ions combine with NADP. The H+ comes from the photolysis of water. In the light-dependent reaction of photosynthesis, light energy generates ATP. Describe how. Light excites or raises the energy level of electrons in the chlorophyll. Electrons pass down the electron transport chain or electron transfer chain. Electrons reduce the carriers, or it involves a series of redox reactions. The electron transfer chain, or the role of the chain, is associated with the chloroplast membranes in the thylakoids. Energy is released, or carriers are at decreasing energy levels. ATP is generated from ADP and Pi, or phosphorylation of ATP. Heat stress is a condition that often occurs in plants exposed to high temperatures for a prolonged period of time. Heat stress is a major factor in limiting the rate of photosynthesis. Heat stress decreases the light-dependent reaction of photosynthesis. Explain why this leads to a decrease in the light-independent reaction. Because there's less ATP produced and less reduced NADP. Another effect of heat stress is a decrease in the activity of the enzyme Rubisco. A decrease in the activity of an enzyme means the rate of reaction it catalyses becomes slower. A decrease in the activity of the enzyme Rubisco would limit the rate of photosynthesis. Explain why. Less or no carbon dioxide reacts with ribulose biphosphate, less or no GP. Where precisely is Rubisco found in a cell? It is found in the stroma of the chloroplast. Crops use light energy to produce photosynthetic products. Describe how crop plants use light energy during the light-dependent reaction. So the light energy excites electrons in the chlorophyll. Electrons move to a higher energy level. Electrons move along electron transfer chain, which releases energy. Energy is used to join ADP and Pi to form ATP. There is the photolysis of water, which produces protons, electrons and oxygen. NADP reduced by electrons and protons or hydrogen. In the light-independent reaction of photosynthesis, the carbon in carbon dioxide becomes carbon in triose phosphate. Describe how. Carbon dioxide combines with ribulose biphosphate to produce 2 molecules of glycerate 3-phosphate. It's then reduced to triose phosphate. You can't have the abbreviation anymore. Requires reduced NADP, energy from ATP, and that's it. Energy enters most ecosystems through the light-dependent reaction of photosynthesis. Describe what happens during the light-dependent reaction. Chlorophyll absorbs light energy. This excites electrons in the chlorophyll. Electrons move along the electron transfer chain or electron transport chain, releasing energy. Energy is used to join ADP and Pi to form ATP. And there's a photolysis of water, which produces protons, electrons and oxygen. NADP is reduced by electrons or hydrogen. During the light-independent reaction of photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is converted into organic substances. Describe how. Carbon dioxide combines with ribulose biphosphate, produces 2-glycerate 3-phosphate. GP is reduced to triose phosphate using reduced NADP. Using energy from ATP, triose phosphate is converted to glucose or hexose or ribulose biphosphate. During photosynthesis, carbon dioxide reacts with ribulose biphosphate to form 2 molecules of glycerate 3-phosphate or GP. This reaction is catalysed by the enzyme Rubisco. Rubisco can also catalyse a reaction between RuBP and oxygen to form one molecule of GP and one molecule of phosphoglycerate. Both the reactions catalysed by Rubisco are shown in figure 1. Where exactly in a cell is the enzyme Rubisco found? It's found in the stroma of chloroplasts. Use the information provided to give the number of carbon atoms in 1 molecule of phosphoglycerate. So for this one, you've got 5 carbon compound going in, and you add 1 carbon, so it becomes 6. So that's 2 glycerate 3 phosphates to 2 3 carbons. This one, you're not adding any carbon dioxide, so you've just got 5 carbons compound going to glycerate 3 phosphate and it's covered up, and phosphoglycerate. So we know glycerate 3 phosphate is already 3 because we've worked that out. So what's left is 5 minus 3 is 2 carbons left. Where precisely in a cell does the Calvin cycle take place? It happens in the stroma of chloroplasts.